This episode is brought to you by Progressive, a leader in boat insurance. Welcome aboard to Carefree Boating. Here, we don't worry about the what-ifs, because we explore with Progressive Boat Insurance for as little as $100 per year for a basic liability policy. Progressive also offers a variety of other coverages and can help you cover repair costs when you need it. And with discounts like multi-policy, safety courses, responsible driver, and more, your mind can really float free. Cruise on over to Progressive.com to get a quote today and see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Rate and discounts not available in all states or situations.
The Boston Marathon, presented by Bank of America, has thousands of runners running for thousands of reasons.
I'm running to raise money for Achilles International, so amputee athletes can keep running too.
For every mother counts, because all women deserve access to quality maternity care.
For St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and every kid with cancer who just wants to be a kid again.
Join Bank of America in supporting this year's runners. Give if you can at BofA.com/help-a-cause. References to charitable organizations is not endorsement by Bank of America Corporation. Copyright 2024.
Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries, plus napkins, plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.
All right, Duke fans, you ready for it? Episode 618 of the DBR podcast, Duke Basketball Roundup. I'm Jason Evans. Joining me is Donald Wine. Donald, I'd say what? It's been like, what, about 15 hours, 16 hours, 15 hours or so since the game ended? Since that Sweet 16 amazing game over Houston ended? I think I'm still not calmed down.
I didn't fall asleep until like 3:30. I tried to go to bed. It just wasn't happening. My body was racing. My body was in mode, as I'm sure a lot of people out there were. But yeah, I'm excited today. We have another game tomorrow. Tomorrow is Easter. Would love to have some Easter eggs in the form of an Elite Eight win. So, Jason, we're going to recap Houston. I know we're going to talk about NC State, who it seems like we've seen every couple weeks over the past month. And I'm ready to go.
I am too. Yeah. So this will be our full recap. Folks, if for some reason you missed the episode, the DBR Bites episode that we put out about 12 hours ago or so, a little more than that, that was Donald and I reacting in real time to the very end of that game. I think it's a lot of fun. Have a listen. Check it out. It's not going to have as much meat as this one. Little more on the bone
next
for this
to the
episode.
name. Definitely has an E, so prepare yourself.
Explicit. Be ready. Cover the children's ears for that episode for sure. All right. So, Donald, let's start the traditional way we always do. I can't even believe how many emails we got. I've had a really, really busy Saturday, so you did me the favor of reading all the emails that came into the dbrpodcast@gmail.com inbox. It was overflowing with ideas and statements and comments from our listeners. What were the best?
So, Jason, first of all, do you know how many headlines we received?
No,
I counted.
Wait. Hold on. I'm gonna go 58.
Jason, you were very close. The final score last night was Duke 54, Houston 51. We received exactly 54 headlines.
Oh, I love it.
One for every single point in the game. So everyone out there, whoever was out there was like, no, maybe I should hold off. Thank you, because you would have been 55. You would have ruined this whole little moment that we just had. But 54 headlines that we got from people. And Jason, it was because of that, it was near impossible to whittle it down to a select few. So here are some that I thought were really good. Keeping in mind that we also did a couple on the episode that we did last night when we were just screaming into the mic. So first off, I start with James Allen. We'll talk about this player a lot, but he said simply, roaches prove hard to get rid of. Yes, that is very, very true.
I love that.
That one's good. We had some really good ones. And there's ones in the editing room floor that we just can't get to. Joe Reed sent us in one. He goes, Duke sheds soft label and battle with Houston. We'll talk about that very early on in the show, I'm pretty sure. David Gorrit said, shed no tears. Ugly Dukelings advance to elite swans. I love that one. John Barthelson had a bunch of them, but the best one I thought from him was Ryan dunks, Roach leads, and Flip refuses to go gently into that good night. A nice Dylan Thomas reference. If you have a Thomas reference on here, you're gonna get on. That's pretty
How
sure.
how very Duke of us.
How very Duke of us. Exactly. Chris Emershine sent in a ton of them, and all of them are really good. But this one, again, highlighting another player that we're going to talk about. And he said, send a proctor to steal this exam and seal the victory. We're going to talk about Tyrese Proctor's clutch defense in this podcast. Brian Kim, he has a reference to a Pearl Jam song. Houston, we had a problem until Jeremy spoke on the court today. Jeremy, the song by Pearl Jam. That was a very, very good one. I had to read that a couple times. Like, what is he talking about? Oh, very, very good. John Grantland wrote in a ton of them, but this one, Jason, I have to end with this one. He wrote, Duke starts with a big D as the Devils dismissed Drake's one dance past the Cougars in a dynastic and dominating victory. Now, the reason why I have that in there, that's a long one. Drake obviously has the song called One Dance. And if you recall, there was a little bit of a Drake curse that was at
obsessed. You're obsessed with the Drake curse.
but wait, this is why. Remember, we had Jeremy Branham on, and he was excellent in previewing, but we asked about the Drake curse, and he said that, well, the Houston fans don't quite believe in the Drake curse. Well, Jeremy, and everyone out there, guess who gave Drake the jersey? It was Jamal Shed. The Drake curse lives on.
That's cold. Wow.
That is I'm telling you, sometimes you just got to understand that sometimes there are higher factors of power, and this is not to wish injury in Jamal Shed, but Jamal Shed was the one that gave him the jersey. He ends up having to leave the game. Houston ends up losing. The Drake curse, it may appear in different ways, but it appears all the time. Jason, those are the headlines. And again, there's another 50 or so that we left out there. But again, thank you to everybody who emailed dbrpodcast@gmail.com with your headlines. They were all fantastic to read.
Man, that is some good stuff. That is some really good stuff. All right, so let's get into the game itself. And we'll begin with the good. I'm going to start with the toughness. I don't know how you can start any place.
It's number one on my list. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, and Donald, let's begin with this because we want to play a little bit of sound from John Shire at the post-game press conference. In the post-game press conference, the players were asked, they specifically asked Kyle Filipowski, and the other players chimed in a little bit about the loss to Tennessee last year and how, had we learned lessons from that? And Flip said, we were not going to let ourselves get out toughed again. And John Shire then jumped in. The question was not directed to him. And they have a very specific way they do these NCAA tournament press conferences. And usually you ask the players the questions, then you ask it's very separate. But John Shire said, I'm jumping in. I want you all to hear what John Shire had to say about the criticism that this team has had to endure about losing that game to Tennessee last year and whether these guys were players who could play tough basketball. Have a listen.
Like, you don't have to apologize for losing in the tournament. Every team loses except one. And for these guys, we started 4 freshmen last year. And this year, like these guys, Jeremy obviously has been through it. This is only their second time. And so I think for us, some of the criticism about toughness or whatever, like try being at Duke as a freshman and sophomore and battling your ass off in the tournament and then talk to me about being tough. So for me, like these guys have shown every step of the way how tough they are mentally, physically. I know it's not my question. I know it's for these guys. But I just have to say that because they've repeatedly shown me what they're made of in the 2 years I've been the head coach and obviously for Jeremy before that.
All right, I'm sorry, but that is heady praise and sobering words from the Duke head basketball coach. And I'll go ahead and say it. We've questioned this team's toughness at times, and I feel kind of bad.
I think everyone has. I think everyone has, right? We were questioning it. The word soft has been placed on this Duke team since that Tennessee game. And whenever we lost games in the ACC in the regular season, that word came up again. And the lack of toughness and the lack of competitive fire and spirit and passion and all those things, we have criticized the teams for performances in those categories. other people up there have done it when we win, right? Against JMU, we heard the soft label, right? So it has popped itself up in all the time. But Jason, I interrupt because I want to recall you back to when you were at Duke. You went to what, Boston College and Wake Forest. And after the Wake Forest game, you were in the press conference when John Shire said something to the effect of, this team is going to be here at the very end, and he had full confidence in this team. Well, Jason, we're getting close to the very end, and those words are appearing very prophetic. There's a lot of people who emailed that clip to us last night and this morning because of how prophetic it is, and it goes back to the fact that the toughness that we have seen over the last few games has been nothing short of incredible. And last night, I mean, we got some emails from people who were in the building who said that we talked about how Houston's toughness was on another level from where they have been, which has been on another level from everyone else in Division One. They felt it in the arena. And to see this team respond to that, I don't think I've been as proud of this team this year than that game last night.
I completely agree. And I want to come back to something else that John Shire said in the press conference toward the very end. They had asked him his last question. He was about to leave. And he said, you know what? Hang on a second. There are two players that I haven't talked about enough. There are two players that we need to highlight here at the end of this press conference. And he specifically mentioned Ryan Young and Tyrese Proctor, who he said were just physically tough and played unbelievably hard in this game. Duke, I mean, like, look, it's easy to go, Duke doesn't win this game without Roach and Filipowski on offense. And we're going to talk about them in a little bit. It's easy to cite a number of different things. Look, it's very possible to go ahead and say Duke probably doesn't win this game without Jamal Shedd getting injured. I don't want to get into a lot of that, but I think that's not an illegitimate argument to make. But John Shire wanted to make sure we all recognize Duke does not win this game without the defense and toughness displayed by Tyrese Proctor and Ryan Young. So I know traditionally Donald, we do sort of big themes before we get to players. I'm getting to a couple players right now because I want to mention this.
Real quick before you do, because I think this is important too. This also, I think, in my mind, adds to the toughness factor. We mentioned before the game that Duke cannot beat a higher seed since 1994, and that partly is because of the fact that we are usually the higher seed in the NCAA tournament more often than not, and that's a testament to the program. Jason, did you know that this was the 10th win that we have had over a one seed?
This.
The most of any team.
No one else has ever beaten a one seed 10 times. Yeah.
And that's considering how many times we have been that one seed that people need to beat. So I just need people to understand here that the toughness factor, that if you want to keep talking about it, that's fine. But Duke is showing that they have plenty of toughness to go around, and it does not matter who's in front of them. Every single game that we have prepared on here, people have been like, yo, this team is going to beat us. This team is going to be the one that takes us out. And I won't be surprised if this team wins or this team wins or this team wins. We're now in the Elite Eight, and every single time they have passed those physicality tests with flying colors.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And as I get back now to Ryan Young and Tyrese Proctor, I'm going to start with Ryan Young. So Ryan Young finishes this game with 4 points and 4 rebounds and 5 fouls. And you may be like, I mean, really?
And a steal.
Maybe, really? That's the guy you're going to highlight? That's the first name you're going to talk about? Uh-huh. That's the first name I'm going to talk about because of this. Get ready for the number. Ryan Young's plus minus in this game was plus 18. I'll be honest with you, I don't know how that's possible in a back and forth game like that. And again, 54-51, and he was plus 18. It's a ridiculous, it's an absurd, like no one else is in the same ballpark as that number in plus minus. And look, I know plus minus, it's very variable from game to game, but plus 18 is like outrageous. In the post game, when the players are looking at the box score, Kyle Filipowski knows, he goes, hey, Ryan was plus 18 this game. And you can barely hear it. Jeremy Roach goes, really? Like,
yeah.
Like he can't. He's like, are you kidding me? He was plus 18. And
you say
Roach
plus 8?
like,
you said 18. You
18,
there's a 1.
And Flip is like, yep. And you could probably, I wish the camera had been on Jeremy Roach because I'm sure his eyes were like, damn. The effort, the intensity, the physicality that Ryan Young brought. And again, John Shire talked about this. It was a game changer. Duke was in serious trouble. We were in serious trouble when Ryan Young came in the game for the first time. And I'm not saying that he magically did anything other than just put out unbelievable effort, but his effort rubbed off on his teammates. And as a result, the Blue Devils were able to fight their way back in a game that it looked like they were about to get blown out of.
And facing a team that had so many fourth and fifth year seniors, he brought some sixth year senior experience. He brought 4 years of Big Ten experience and 2 years of Duke basketball experience to his game last night. And like you said, a lot of the stuff that he was doing was not stat sheetable. Like it was not going to appear in one of those categories, but him just playing just tough nose, straight up defense was really helping Duke stay in the game. And as we mentioned, there was a point where I think when he checked in the game, it was 10-7. I can probably be confident saying that because it was, like I said, it was 10-7 for about
4 minutes.
Yeah, for about a year. So it's fine that he comes in and you're not expecting him to score. And again, there was a point where I think we had Kyle Filipowski had left out for Sean Stewart. So Sean Stewart's in the game. You have Ryan Young in the game, I think, at one point together.
They were,
where again, you're sitting there thinking, wow, the productivity on offense is going to go way down in a game that is already way down, but they kept us in it with defense. Ryan Young was able to be a leader out there. He was able to lead by example. Whenever someone went into his face, he responded. There was that one. And the other thing was he had 5 fouls, and I feel like he only had 2 of them. Like every single time it was
he gets some tough calls. Wow.
He had some tough calls. And then again, not a referee thing that like it's tough to call a game like that, but it felt like Ryan Young especially got the short end of some of those calls because I thought he played excellent defense, even on those calls that he got called for a foul. I was just mesmerized by how he was able to stay within himself, but also feel like he can reach out through his defense and lead this team back. Slowly but surely grind it out until we took the lead. And then in the second half, I think Houston tied it 3 or 4 times. Like we scored a basket, they scored a basket. But once we took the lead, we never relinquished it. And I think that was a testament to how he played. Like I said, you don't win the game on one play. Ryan Young won the game in 23 minutes with a plus 18.
Yeah, Donald, there was only one lead change in this game, which is kind of incredible considering how close it was. Like Duke never led by more than 6, I think it was, and Houston never led by more than 8.
It was an 8-0 start.
Really tight band, and there was only one lead change in the entire game.
And it was when we went, it was like when we made free throws to make it like 20-19 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was 21-20, but whatever the score was, Proctor hit a pair of free throws. Duke got the lead, which we never officially relinquished. It got tied a few times, but we never relinquished. Yeah, pretty incredible. Back to Ryan Young really quick. Tom Wildermuth, who's one of the better listeners that we have in terms of sending us questions, comments, headlines, stuff like that. Tom sent this, and I wanted to comment on it briefly. He said, Ryan Young traditionally has had issues guarding more athletic big men. And yet last night he was a difference maker with rebounding and holding his ground. What do you think it was? Was it like the rebounding and strength? What made the Duke coaching staff decide to ride Ryan Young so much against a Houston team that has some very really athletic big men? And Tom, I think the answer was this. The Houston guys are very athletic, but most of what they're doing is using their physical strength and their length. They're not guys who are trying to, take the ball off the dribble around you and things like that. And I think that the Duke coaches recognized that the physical strength of those Houston big men was the thing that was going to give Duke the most trouble. It was the thing that was going to give Flip and Mitchell and perhaps even Sean Stewart the most difficulty, in that they and the coaching staff recognized Ryan Young is a guy where if you want to lean on him, if you want to push on him, Ryan's like, great, I will push back all day long, baby. And that's his kind of game. So that even though it feels like this Houston team is not a good matchup for him, it turned out to be an excellent matchup for Ryan Young.
And it sounded like, and I think you touched on this briefly last night, it sounded like the coaching staff's plan all week was to play a lot of ball that involved Flip and Young being on the court at the same time to kind of neutralize the physicality. They started out with the same lineup, but eventually they said, okay, but we've been working on this all week. These guys are ready to do this alternative lineup that we have and put it in there. And that relies on Ryan Young stepping up, right? Ryan Young could have had a game where he didn't do the things that he did, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Very easily. In a game that's so physical, like physicality is just a unknown factor that you don't know how you're going to contain it until you actually see it for yourself. I think the best game plan that John Shire had amongst the game plan that I thought he performed brilliantly was letting Ryan Young sit the first 5 minutes of this game and see how this physicality was stacking up before sending him in there to do that damage.
That is not a bad call, my friend. Not a bad call at all. Yeah. So, all right. So I want to get to the other guy who I thought displayed the unbelievable toughness, at least on defense, and that was Tyrese Proctor. It doesn't really show up that much in the box score other than 3 steals. Those steals do jump out at you a little bit, though. And I just wanted to say the moment he had where he stole the ball from Jamal Shed, where he ripped it. Sorry, not from Jamal Shed, from LJ Cryer. Yeah. Where he ripped it out of his hands. It was a play where, like, you saw Cryer getting in some trouble, and I thought they were going to call a jump ball, but suddenly it's in Proctor's hands because, and again, LJ Cryer, a guy who won a national title at Baylor, like a guy who's been around for a long time,
was a beast last night too. Like,
yeah.
Hat tip to him.
He was their whole offense, and then Duke switched Proctor onto him, and it changed the complexion of what Houston was able to get done. That play, when Proctor ripped the ball out of his hands, I started jumping up and down and screaming. I was just like guttered, like, ah, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Cameron, my dog, I think has never seen me act like that. He wanted none of it. Cameron had been next to me. He fled the room. He was like, I'm done. Cameron went to another room. He wouldn't come back until the game was like 2 hours over. He's like, is it safe now? And I was like, yes, Cameron. Tyrese Proctor is all done. It is safe for you to come back and be next to me again.
I think the perimeter defense that he had was incredible, right? Forget the steals. I know we'll talk about his 3 steals are honestly 3 of the top plays that we could have for play of the game. I think the other thing was his perimeter defense on 3-pointers was magnificent. If you recall, Jason, last night, Houston did not make a 3-pointer until like midway through the second half.
I know. It's unbelievable. Well, they were afraid to even take them. We weren't even letting them take 3s.
Mm-hmm. We were making them try to go into the paint and hopefully, like, hey, if you can miss whatever, go. But like, they weren't going to let Houston gain a lot of momentum through 3s, because in the NCAA tournament, as we know, if the team starts hitting a bunch of 3s, that can seize momentum quickly and confidently. They weren't able to do that. And it even came down, Jason, to that last play where Tyrese Proctor was sitting there at the top and was waiting for someone because they knew they needed a 3 and to tie the game. And he was just waiting for someone to shoot so he could put a hand in the face, displayed excellent defense, did not foul on the play, and was able to, we kind of let the ball loose. It went out of bounds, and then we're able to throw the ball to kind of waste the rest of the time. But his defense straight up man-to-man on guys was absolutely magnificent.
Well, and the 3-pointers were the difference in the game. Both these teams made 20 field goals in the game. They each made 20 field goals. Duke hit 8 free throws. Houston hit 9 free throws. I'm talking about a game. It's basically even game at this point. The difference in the game was Duke hit 6 3-pointers. Houston only hit 2.
And for me, also, I pointed that, we got some guys to the line in Houston, and Houston had some, we talked about Houston had a couple of guys that shot free throws well, but a couple that shot terribly. Well, thankfully, the terrible guys were the ones at the line because they went 9 for 17. And I know in a 3-point ball game, they're looking at a lot of things. They may say, oh, Jamal Shed's in this ball game. They win this game. If they had made their free throws, if they had made 12 free throws instead of 9, this game goes to overtime. I think that's the key here is, those guys didn't have an opportunity. They had opportunities to win it, but they didn't. And it was a testament and overall to how Duke played on defense. And again, matching after the first, 5 minutes of the game, matching the physicality that Houston brought to the table.
All right, as we continue the toughness theme, because frankly, I think it runs through just about everything in this game. I wanted to note the rebounds. Duke out-rebounded them 34-30. We have talked extensively. When Duke out-rebounds the opposition, Duke tends to win the game. That happened again in this game. I wanted to especially shout out 13 offensive rebounds. Duke had an offensive rebounding rate of 40.6%. That was huge. That was so important. We said that was one of the few places that you could get this Houston team, is to get some offensive rebounds. It led to 11 second chance points in a game where every single point was precious. And then I wanted to mention one other thing. I have a good friend, Jeff Crow, who's a Dookie, who I text with all the time during games. And he said God, he goes, it was amazing that a team that way too often had played like a bunch of wussies. He didn't use wussies, but you know what word he did use. Amazing that a team that way too often this year played like a bunch of wussies suddenly has become so tough during the tournament. And my response to Jeff with this, I was like, man, it's almost like they learned how to improve and get better, as if maybe some smart individuals were giving them instructions or something. You might even call it, I don't know, like coaching or something like that, perhaps. I do want to tip my cap to John Shire and the Duke staff. I think they had a very good game plan. I know Duke got knocked back hard at the beginning. They didn't panic. The team didn't panic. They had an answer for that, named Ryan Young. But for this Duke team to have elevated its play the way it has, specifically in the arena of effort, in the arena of toughness, for them to be doing that at this moment, you've got to put some of it on this coaching staff, mostly a youngish coaching staff. Look, looking at the other sideline, Kelvin Sampson all by himself probably has more years of coaching, both, as a head coach, than all the Duke staff has as assistant coaches. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were going against one of the greats, one of the most experienced guys out there. And I just think it's so great that John Shire had these guys motivated. He had them playing the right way. And the progress that this Duke team has shown, yeah, a lot of it is the players. Of course, they're the ones who have to execute, but there definitely needs to be some praise thrown the way of John Shire and this staff for getting these guys to where they need to be to play these kind of games, as opposed to a year ago. We talked about this earlier, that Tennessee game where Duke didn't have it, same kind of circumstance, and Duke had it this time. Again, praise to the coaches for getting them there.
Jason, entering this game, the lowest point total we had all year was 64. We scored 54 and won the game. Now, that is a testament to a lot of things, but it is also a testament to, again, how the players gritted through this, but also how the coaching staff did too, because I'm sure there were a ton of adjustments that they need to make in game once, again, they saw the level that Houston was playing at and how they needed to get to that point. Again, sitting Ryan Young and saying, hey, we've been working on this all week. We're going to deploy it when it's ready. And then seeing how the game unfolded and said, okay, now's the time, go in there. To see how guys responded on defense, to see how guys responded on offense to make some really tough shots. The shots that we made, none of them were there's very few wide open shots in this game for both teams. So I think being able to adjust, we moved the ball around quite well, 14 assists on 20 made baskets. And again, it felt like a lot of them were just completely, guys not necessarily have to improvise, but really having to really grind out where they need to be on the floor to get those shots and make some tough ones with guys in their face through contact and sometimes drawing the foul. So I really am happy for this, but you're right. The coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for the game plan for this, because people have, just like they've been saying we're soft all year, they've been talking about how John Shire may not be up to the task all year long. And he responded, the coaching staff responded, the video guys responded, everyone who was involved with making this victory happen. It's not just the players, it's not just the coaching staff. There's a bunch of people who deserve credit for how this game ended up.
Yeah, hey, as we continue to make our way through the good, I want to bring up a couple other players. It's time for us to talk about the offensive side of the ball. And if that's what you're talking about, then you're talking about Kyle Filipowski and Jeremy Roach. I mean, frankly, Duke didn't have – Tyrese Proctor made a couple big shots. Jared McCain had a couple early in the contest. But for the most part, this was Flip and Roach, especially in the second half. Flip finishes with 16 points. Roach finishes with 14. Kyle Filipowski was 3 of 5 on 3-pointers. And he had a couple, frankly, lucky threes.
Ill-advised. But they went in.
Shots. They're bad shots, but they went in. I'll take
No, Jason, you can't call them bad. No shot that goes in as a bad shot. You could call them ill-advised. You can call them maybe not in the flow of the offense, but they were good because they went in. If they had missed, sure, they're bad. But that especially that one where it was like shot clock running out and he kind of did a running Steph Curry type of three, and it just went bottoms. Like I started laughing uncontrollably when that happened, because I'm like that. Yeah. You need effort, you need preparation, you need all that stuff, right? And as I mentioned, sometimes you just need a little luck mixed in there, and that's what we got.
Exactly. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the luck in a second, but I do want to focus again on Flip and Roach. Shire mentioned in the post game about how hard Houston makes it on you offensively, but that Flip and Roach managed to get downhill. John Shire said, get downhill again and again. That's them going toward the basket. It was essential for this Duke team to have buckets in that kind of fashion, to be able to get downhill on Houston, to not just be playing outside against them and shooting over them, because that's what Houston wants you to do. And I thought the guy who really did that was Jeremy Roach in the second half. Look, his first half was bad. His first half was really bad. He then more than made up for it with clutch shot after clutch shot, big ones again and again and again. 14 second half points, all his points, 3 free throws in the second half. I mean, against this Houston team, for him to be able to do that was really impressive. Both those guys, we needed to rely on them because I'm not sure we had anybody else who could get anything done, and they got it done for us.
I think with Kyle Filipowski, and first off with Kyle Filipowski, if you remember, early in the game, we were trying to get to him in the post, and Houston was doing a great job. Their motor was so high that they were double teaming the guy who had the ball, and then when they entered the ball to flip, all of a sudden there was 2, maybe 3 guys around him, and it was the same guy. Like, it was the same guy basically guarding, double teaming both players, and we had to figure out a way to get around that. So the answer to that was bring Flip to the top of the key and let him go downhill. The great thing about what he was doing, and especially what Jeremy Roach was doing in the second half, is that they were doing it and they were in control while they did it. As I mentioned, they weren't going straight all the way to the hoop and trying to bully through guys because they knew they'd get foul or charges called on them, and a couple of times they did. So what they did was they would stop, jump stop, maybe do a pop, like a 5-foot pop in the air for a jumper, maybe do like a Euro step towards the edge of the lane and then take the floater off the rim. But what they did was they improvised. They saw what Houston was trying to do to stop them driving, and they just went around them. And I think that was the key. And again, they took a lot of tough shots, but they made a lot of tough shots. And I think in this game, the toughness factor exuded itself in the fact that some of these possessions ended with points because we were tough on offense too. We weren't just tough on defense. And I think that was something that we had to adjust to early on. We threw the ball away quite a bit, and it just felt like what Houston was doing was like, man, we'll never score at this point. But they were able to fight through that. And Jeremy Roach in the second half, Jeremy Roach in March, welcome, stay, have a seat, kick your feet up, stay a long time, because that is the Jeremy Roach that we all need. And that Kyle Filipowski, who was playing like he was having fun, that and one he had which was super crucial late in the second half, where he basically got it in. Again, he tried to muscle off somebody, some guy bumped into him, he makes it through contact and then flexes to the bench and slaps his bicep. That's the Flip we need too, right? In control, but still aggressive and still physical in getting his points.
Look, you were talking about Kyle Filipowski, and we mentioned the lucky 3-pointers he had, 2 of them. That's 6 points. I mean, that's the difference in the game right there. The fact that Flip hit those 2 kind of circus shot threes. Duke got lucky in a number of different ways, but it takes some luck to win it all. We got lucky when Jeremy Roach got fouled shooting a 3-pointer with just a heartbeat left in the shot clock. That's a big, big moment. And we got points out of that when we probably didn't deserve any points. We got other lucky bounces throughout this game. I'd say on whole, the luck was more for Duke than it was for Houston this game. Don't even get me started on Jamal Shed getting hurt on a routine layup. But you got to get luck to win it. And Duke is also getting some bracket luck. We played a 12 in the second round. I mean, James Mass, great team. JMU probably didn't deserve to be a 12. But, we got lucky to face them and not face someone tougher than that in the second round. And here we are coming into the grade 8. The Elite 8, a trip to the Final Four. We're going to get playing in 11. And look, I know NC State is playing great. They have found a new gear. They're simply not the same team they were during the regular season. But I mean, we could be facing like Tennessee, if we're in a different bracket, we could be facing a Tennessee or someone like that. There's some darn good teams out there. And Duke has found a way to sort of get the bracket to work the way we want it to. I'll take it, baby. I'll take it all day.
So there's 2 things that you mentioned that I'm going to push back on and say, yes, luck is involved, but not in those 2 areas. The first thing is Jamal Shed, right? Jamal Shed going down was tragic. It's I know it's a grade 4 sprain, so in the grand scheme of things, he's going to be okay in 4 to 6 weeks. But that's a shame for that to happen in a game like that. And a lot of people were saying, "Oh, if Jamal Shed stays in this game, then Duke gets torched." Well, he only had 2 points at that point. We had done a good job at limiting him on offense, at least from shooting, but it was his ball handling that was good. But I will say this: we've been without Caleb Foster this whole time too. Caleb Foster started 15 games. No one's saying, "Oh, if Duke had Caleb Foster in this game, that we would be much better than we were," because I think we would be. I think on the other part is, you're talking about the bracket. Yeah, sure, we're facing a bracket. It's Houston in 2021 went to the Final Four and did not face a single-digit seed in that time. They got through the whole region while facing nothing but double-digit seeds. So it's not that, but it's also not our fault. That's not luck. That's if you say that it's lucky that we got this bracket, then maybe the 2 seed, the 3 seed, and the 5 seed should have played a little bit better, because maybe we'd have played one of them. We just beat a 1 seed that now everyone's saying, "Oh, they were the weakest 1 seed," when they were the strongest 1 seed entering.
No.
Right, what's what I'm saying? Like, people now are using that to say, "Oh, well, they were just a weak 1 seed." No, they weren't. They were the second best 1 seed, and arguably should have been the overall number 1 seed if they had beaten Iowa State in the Big 12 final. That's how good they have been all year. So don't discredit it just because they lost one guy and people saying, "Oh, well, they basically play like a 12 seed." We're to beat one of those. So, like, this is not a luck thing. If you think Duke getting this kind of road to the Final Four, or at least to the Elite Eight at this point, is lucky, then you need to talk to Marquette about that. You need to talk to Kentucky about that for sure. And you need to talk to Wisconsin about that. Take it up with them. Don't take it up with me.
I love it. You are so right, sir. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, a little bit of bad, a little bit of play of the game, and a little bit of NC State. I know you already know them. I don't have a lot to say about NC State. We'll talk about it. You do? Okay, good. You can carry us there, baby. We'll have all that after this quick commercial break.
This episode of the DBR is brought to you by BetterHelp.
Hey, everybody. This is Jason Evans of the Duke Basketball Roundup podcast. Truth is, I'd be lying if I told you I didn't have stuff to work on. All my life, I've had a great passion for the things that I wanted to do, like this podcast, but not as much for the things that I was supposed to do. And honestly, it used to get me in trouble sometimes. But some years ago, I started talking about it with a therapist, and it really helped. And I learned to embrace the supposed to, not just the want to. And frankly, my life is better for it. If you don't believe me, just ask my wife. Getting advice from people who know how to listen is what BetterHelp is all about. It is therapy for the internet era, completely online, making it convenient and flexible to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched to a professional licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists at any time.
So visit BetterHelp.com/Duke Roundup today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Duke Roundup. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp.
Okay, I'm going to turn that recording on.
This podcast is brought to you by AT&T Fiber with All-Fi. Something tells me that the guy watching sports for 13 hours straight on Sunday, who then stays up watching the recaps of those 13 hours, then calls his friends to talk about it, is definitely going to notice that half-a-second delay.
Get AT&T Fiber with All-Fi and watch sports any time of day from anywhere in your house. Live like a gigillionaire. Limited availability in select areas. Go to att.com/hypergig to check eligibility. Coverage may require extenders at additional charge.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive, a leader in boat insurance. Welcome aboard to Carefree Boating. Here, we don't worry about the what-ifs, because we explore with Progressive Boat Insurance for as little as $100 per year for a basic liability policy. Progressive also offers a variety of other coverages and can help you cover repair costs when you need it. And with discounts like multi-policy, safety courses, responsible driver, and more, your mind can really float free. Cruise on over to Progressive.com to get a quote today and see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Rate and discounts not available in all states or situations.
We're back from the break. All right, time for the bad. I'll get us started. Duke had a rough start to this game. It was 8-0. Duke had 3 turnovers, and we'd missed a jumper, while Houston had scored in the lane, like not their best players, like the sort of supporting cast had scored all their buckets. They scored in their first 4 possessions. Duke had like one bad shot on our first 4 possessions. I'm going to be honest. I kind of thought, I think we may be in a lot of trouble here. But we looked flustered and confused. We were knocked back. Our guards looked absolutely shell-shocked. But we found a way and fought through it. The bad has to start with a rough start for the Blue Devils.
Look, that was beyond a rough start. It was again, Houston was on another planet. Houston didn't have a problem, we did, because we had to adapt to the physicality. And I think the main part of this is that we have to learn how to adapt to physicality quicker. I thought Jason, we've had games where we've seen this get punched in the mouth and we don't recover from it. This is the first game that we've seen really where we took a huge punch in the mouth and we recovered from it and we're able to overcome it. But we need to react to that quicker. When they come out in the first possession, they were guarding Jared McCain like Jared McCain had scored 80 points a game. Like he couldn't get a pass off, he couldn't get a dribble off without 2 or 3 guys feeling in his face and really pushing him around. I think the point of all this, Jason, is that you have to learn how to play offense through that sort of physicality. And when someone punches you in the mouth, you have to figure out how to respond to that. And again, we did, but it took a while to do so. Quite frankly, that was probably a punch in the mouth that we have not received since that Tennessee game last year. And that was that was a huge haymaker. And that led to us thinking that this was a brawl or a war last night, because it was.
All right, so let's get to the next thing, and it sort of plays right off of that rough start, which is the turnovers. Duke had 14 turnovers in this game, led to 15 Houston points off turnover. Donald, we talked in the pregame. You and I said, like, the scariest thing about this Houston team was they forced turnovers on 24.5% of their possessions by their opposition. They got 25% against Duke. 1 out of every 4 Duke possessions ended in a turnover. Man, we also talked about how Houston allows a lot of assists, though. Duke had 14 assists on 20 made buckets, 70%. And by the way, speaking of all these turnovers, I think perhaps the most incredible statistic in this entire game. Did you see the fast break points? Duke had 0 fast break points in this game. Houston had 2. A total of 2 fast break points by both teams in this game. That shows you the
level. That was the steal. That was the steal that went the other way for the layup.
Yeah, by Jamal. Exactly. Shed had a steal early on. It was his only bucket, by the way.
His only bucket. Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, unbelievable for both these teams to play this entire game, and a total of 2 fast break points in the entire game.
Jason, I think the turnovers was the key here, right? And could have made it where, again, at least we get more shots. I know we had a point where we were taking more shots in Houston, but you have to take care of the basketball. And I thought to this point we had done fairly well at taking care of the basketball in the other games. We went from having 6 turnovers against JMU to having 14 against Houston. So that is a game where, again, those turnovers could have been costly. And we had to really grind to make up for that. But again, testament to Houston's defense, but we have to learn how to take care of the basketball through physicality. That's just the only thing that was missing from this game.
Yeah, let me get to a couple players really quickly, because honestly, Jared McCain and Mark Mitchell did not have stellar games. That's just the reality of what happened. McCain really struggled to get his shot off, to find room for his shot. He also had 4 turnovers in this contest. Considering he wasn't handling the ball a ton, 4 turnovers is not a great number. He only ends up with 7 points. He hit his 2-pointers. Struggled a little bit on those threes. I do want to say Jared McCain had 4 assists, and I like the fact that he recognized they were keying on him a lot after how great he was against James Madison, and he got his other teammates involved. That was very, very important. And then regarding Mark Mitchell, we talked about how great Ryan Young was in this game. To some extent, Ryan Young's ability to handle the physicality was what didn't allow Mark Mitchell to play quite as much as probably Mark would have liked to have played. But even when he was in there, just 1 of 4 on 2-point shots, didn't grab a lot, of only 3 rebounds total in 20 minutes. It's not terrible, but you'd like to see a little more out of him. Mark has had bit of a roller coaster of a season, up and down, up and down. When he is up, he is one of the best players in this team and a really, really impactful player. There are more games to be played for this Duke team. And I hope Mark doesn't get too down on what was a difficult performance against a really, really difficult opponent, because I think he can make a big difference against NC State. State has some guys on the inside who can cause problems for you, and I think Mark Mitchell can be one of the answers to those problems. Better days are ahead for Mark Mitchell. There's no question about that in my mind.
And I know we'll talk about this after the break, but Mark Mitchell had a good game against, he was one of the two players, him and Flip had a good game against NC State in the ACC quarterfinal. So we're going to need him to really be established on him. And they're going to key in on him as well. And I think in the case of Jared McCain, you mentioned he still had 4 assists. He had 6 rebounds as well. I know he had the 4 turnovers, but he was a +3. So he was able to affect on there. I thought he played tremendous defense, right? He's not known to be one of our lockdown defenders, but I thought at times he was last night. So I thought he did well in those areas. And I think for me, yeah, you have to learn how to fight through. Like I said, you have to fight through the physicality. You have to fight to find your shot, especially when it's not. You're not going to get open shots all the time. So I am not overly concerned. That was a really, really physical game, and I don't know that his game is suited well for that. But he was able to fight through it and make plays in other ways.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on you a little bit about Jared McCain having a really good defensive game. It felt to me like at times like Houston was searching him out on defense, and whoever he was guarding was the guy that they were allowing to sort of take the ball and go into the lane and the such. Look, he's got the other guys in the perimeter for Duke are a very experienced Jeremy Roach and a Tyrese Proctor who's an elite perimeter defender. I don't blame Houston for saying we're going to go after the guy McCain's guarding. That's
after the
smart.
freshman, yeah. You go after the freshman.
Yeah, it's smart basketball, but like I said, I'm just pushing back a little. I don't know. It was a great defensive game for Jared McCain. It was fine. Look, the other thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up with the bad is the refs, and this is not something that Duke can really control very much. But I'm just going to mention it because I'm not sure what game those refs were watching, but it was not the same game that I was watching. My friend Jonathan Gans sent me a text. He pointed out he looked at the number of fouls committed, total number of fouls committed by every team that lost in the Elite Eight. Teams that win sometimes don't commit many fouls, but the teams that lost, he went ahead and looked at it. Here are the numbers for you: 23, 18, 17, 16, 16, 15, 15, and 12. 12. I'm going to let you guess which team was only called for 12 fouls in their loss. I don't think you need to guess. It was the Houston Cougars. 12 fouls. A Houston team that is known for committing a ton of fouls. How did and playing against a Duke team where we were taking the ball to the basket a lot, or we were fighting inside for rebounds a lot. How did they only call 12 fouls on Houston? What game were these officials watching? I was getting emails and texts from people who were like, "Hey, I tuned in. Apparently, it's an MMA match that we're watching out here." I don't know what you can do about it. I don't know. People have said, hey, John Shire's young coach doesn't get as much respect. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I don't necessarily put it on the coaching staff, but the number of times I saw Duke guys get pushed, hacked, bodied, and nothing get called was outrageous. It was ridiculous. Ryan Young had a rebound where the guy pushes him in the back and Ryan stumbles and the ref goes up, traveling, or called him stepping on the base.
Call him a foul, yeah. Call him out of bounds. Yeah, call him out
of the base. I was just like, really? You think Ryan Young walks that way normally? You think he was affected by a guy bumping into him? And there were numerous other plays like that. Guys would go up for shots, and you'd see the Houston guy's body against our guy, and you're like, "Oh, that's not a legal guarding position. That's not how. If someone takes a shot and your body bumps into them, that's a foul." And the refs just, again, they called 12 fouls on Houston. How is that even possible given the way Houston plays defense?
Mark Mitchell had a block that was called a foul on him.
That was outrageous. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think Grant Hill pointed it out, was like, that felt really clean in real time, and it does on replay. I think, like I mentioned, Ryan Young got the brunt of that, right? He was getting a lot of physical play on offense and on defense when he was getting called for fouls. Some of them were like, oh, if we're calling that, then that's a foul. Yeah, sure. But like, again, this is like football. There's holding on every play. You just the refs just don't call it. But man, this was like illegal use of the hands on every play. There's a lot of it was a brutal game, and I don't want to say it was a dirty game, but it was definitely a physical game where I felt a lot more fouls should have been called but weren't. I'm not necessarily blaming his ref for that because that's is actually a very difficult game to officiate, a type of game to officiate. But yeah, it felt like at times when, especially like we mentioned at the end, what kind of killed Houston was the thing they got to in the first place, that they only had committed 4 fouls. And at the end of the game, they couldn't foul us enough to, save time and get us to the line to see if they could prolong the game. They had to try and win it there. And that's kind of the reason why we ended up winning this game in part. So good on the refs, I guess. Thanks for not being as great. But yeah, it was just a tough game. This was a really tough game.
All right. Are you ready to move to the play of the game?
Play of the game.
All right. So I'll go ahead and start then. Host privilege. My play of the game is Tyrese Proctor ripping the ball out of LJ Cryer's hands. Because like I said, I scared the hell out of Cameron with that. He ran away. Anytime you get me stomping around and yelling so much that the dog has to flee the room, that's the play of the game. But I wanted to shout out another play. Duke had gone 6 minutes without scoring a point. It was 14-7, and Jalen Blakes was in the game. Ordinarily, Jalen Blakes is not part of the solution to a scoring drought, but he came in and immediately grabbed an important offensive rebound and fed Jared McCain for a wide open. Jared McCain was not this wide open in the bathroom before the game. I mean, it was the only time the entire contest that Jared McCain looked up and went, "Oh my gosh, apparently it is just me and no one else around me for this moment." And he hit a three. But it was Jalen Blakes who started that sequence by fighting hard and grabbing a key offensive rebound and got Duke off a 6-minute scoring drought. I'm not sure. I don't know how much longer. It could have lasted a while longer without a heads-up play to get a one of his teammates, his best shooting teammate, a wide open shot. So that was my runner-up play of the game.
And he actually started that play by kind of crossing someone over, going to the rack, and missing the shot that he got the rebound on. So he got his own rebound and then kicked it out for the assist. And then I think it was like a couple minutes later, he got another rebound, drove the link, went down the floor, ended up going to the line and sinking 2 free throws before he came out of the game. So again, a hockey shift of a spurt there for Jalen Blakes. For me, there's 2 plays, and they both involve Tyrese Proctor. The runner-up play was the final play of the game, where he just absolutely was incredible on defense to prevent the 3 from happening. Did great defense, went straight up and had his hand in the face to stop the final shot of the game that ended up, going out of bounds, and we ended up running the clock out from there. So that was the runner-up. I think the play of the game was not the one that you had, which I think was great. It was the other one where he stripped the ball and the ball kind of went on the ground and he dove on it, turned around, and instead of calling a timeout, as he's about to roll out of bounds, he kind of flipped it to, I think it was Jared McCain who took it and ran with it.
Yep.
That was the play. That was the play where I was just like, oh my goodness, that is just absolute. It was heads up basketball. It was the hustle plays that we were talking about that we weren't winning 2 weeks ago. It was that. It was everything rolled into one, and just an incredible individual play to save a possession for Duke and really, or at least go the other way and really end a possession for Houston. And it was late in the clock, late in the game. Houston was trying to come back. All these little points where they had momentum, we stole it right back. Tyrese Proctor stole the game from Houston with those plays.
No argument at all from me. Hey, I got a quick question for you. We're not technically picking a player of the week, but if you had to pick a player of the game, Roach, Proctor, Flip, or Young, because I can make a case for any one of those guys.
Can I have a cop out answer, which is actually a good answer?
Yeah.
John Shire.
Oh, okay. Yep. No arguments.
Game plan, baby.
No arguments.
Yep.
All right. So a minute ago, you said we're going to take a break and talk about NC State. We already took the break, Donald. So now we talk about NC State. And as I said, I don't have a lot to say here. This NC State team is absolutely on a different level, but I do want to note one thing about them. In the NCAA tournament, where they are 3-0, I went ahead and looked at on Bart Torvik's rankings, efficiency rankings and such. How has everybody how does every team in the NCAA tournament rank in efficiency rankings just for the tournament so far? The 3 games, that have been played, or, in the case of some of these teams have only played 2 games. But so Duke is number 2. UConn is number 1. It's not surprising UConn's number 1. UConn's beaten the absolute living snot out of everybody. Duke is number 2 in overall efficiency. NC State's only number 11. Like, there are a lot of teams still alive who have been better than NC State in this NCAA tournament. I think Duke has gotten a little bit of, maybe a lot of a break here. I know I'm not saying we're going to win. State's good. They showed a couple weeks ago they're capable of beating us. But I think this is a pretty lucky kind of break for Duke. I think I'd be surprised. I'd be pretty darn surprised if NC State wins this game. Tell me what you got on them.
So first of all, let me throw a little stat at you. This is just on Duke in the NCAA tournament. Our defense, we've talked about our defense in all 3 games because our defense has been stellar in this NCAA tournament. Jason, we allowed 47 points to Vermont. We allowed 55 points to JMU, and we allowed 51 points to Houston. That's the 3rd time that Duke has allowed fewer than 60 points to the first 3 opponents in an NCAA tournament.
Wait, I know the other 2. Tell them I know the other 2.
The other 2 years, ladies and gentlemen, 2010 and 2015. I think those years ended.
What do those have in common, Donald?
Those years ended late. They ended on the first Monday in April, and we were happy when it ended. Let's just say we're on that kind of trajectory. But Jason, I know the stats and everything kind of say that, yeah, this is a team that we've seen before. We've seen them twice already this month. We won one at Raleigh. We lost in the ACC tournament back when we didn't have the competitive fire and drive and intensity and passion and all the hunger that we have displayed in the NCAA tournament. But I will say this team, NC State, has been playing fairly well. Since the ACC tournament started, remember, they started on the very first day of the ACC tournament. They beat Louisville. They were down by 10 to Louisville in the first half. Since then, of course, they caught back up a 1. The largest deficit that they have seen is a 7.1 to Virginia. So other than that, UNC, they were only down by 2 at one point. Texas Tech, they were down by 4 at one point. Oakland, they were down by 2, I believe, at the start of the game. And Marquette, the largest deficit they had was 3. And against Duke, they led wire to wire. So this is a team that is playing very, very competent. I think David Kerman, or the K-Man, wrote this in to us. Says, hey, what happens if we can get out to an early jump, get up 9-10 points, and make it where they have to think about, oh, wow, this momentum that we've had for the last 2.5 weeks is starting to run out. Maybe you start getting those questions, you get them off their game. Another guy that I want to focus in, I know a lot of people nationwide have been talking about DJ Burns, and there's great reason for that. He has played tremendously over the last 3 weeks, and he's Cal Filipowski has talked about the respect that he has for his game and vice versa. I want to talk about Mohamed Diarra, because Mohamed Diarra is going through something right now that a lot of people starting to pay attention to. He's Muslim, so right now is the holy month of Ramadan. And so over these past few games, and even in the ACC tournament, he's been fasting during the day, and at night when the sun goes down, he's then able to break his fast. At this point, he has been able to do that for every single game, break fast during the game. That won't happen tomorrow because this game takes place at 4:05 and sunset won't occur until an hour after the game is presumably over. Now, does that mean he's going to play like 20 minutes and be lethargic? No. I say that to give respect to the man because of how he has played, considering the fact that he is not taking in water, not taking in food during most of these games. And he will not be able to do that during this game because he's respectfully practicing his faith. But because of that, we need to watch out for him. That means get him into foul trouble. Don't think you're going to tire him out because he's been playing 37, 31, 39 minutes every single game. You have to go at him because he's been the guy that's torching us. I think against us last time in the ACC tournament, didn't he have like 21 points and like 15 rebounds or something like that? He had some incredible stat line that we were focusing on DJ Burns that beat us, that tried to beat us before. And Mohamed Diarra is the one that got us. We need to really key in on him, and we need to key in on the guys shooting threes, because when they start shooting threes and making threes, that's when they get confident. And Casey Morsell, DJ Horn has been playing really well. Michael O'Connell, those guys have been, they're not going to all kill us at once, but we may need to make it where one of them or two of them don't kill us because, again, DJ Burns is going to bring his game. Diarra is going to bring his game. And Kevin Keats is coaching very well. He's coaching like a man who knew that his job was in jeopardy 3 weeks ago. And now he has a little bit more of a cushion, but he doesn't like the cushion. So I'm really, this is not a team that I don't worry about teams, right? I don't worry about how, oh, this team is scary. I worry about how we're going to play and how we respond. And the worst thing that usually happens at a tournament is when you run into someone that you're familiar with and feel like you can play the same way you did the last time you played them. We obviously can't do that because we lost. I think that's the silver lining here. If we had beaten them in the ACC tournament, we come in here a little bit more lethargic. Now we come in with a little bit of a revenge mission added on top of the fact that we can book a trip to Phoenix to the Final Four. I think that is in this mind. The guys on the in the press conference talked about how they all came back because they wanted this moment. They wanted to be here so that they can take this team to putting another banner in Cameron Indoor Stadium. This is for a banner, ladies and gentlemen. This is for a Final Four banner, and then we'll have a chance to play for one more. I think this team is going to be ready for that. So while NC State has been playing well, I think the world of them. I respect them greatly. We have to not look past them. We have to look right at them. We have to play physical like we did, and we have to show up with that fire that was missing on March 14th here in DC. If we do that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a really good chance of winning this game and going to the Final Four.
All right, regarding Mo Diarra, because I think you're very smart to point him out. In his past 7 games, he hasn't had a single game where he had less than 12 rebounds, and he routinely goes for 14, 15, 16 rebounds. I mean, like, dude has put up some number. You mentioned against us, he had 16 rebounds and 14 points. Yeah, that's a problem. We cannot let him control the boards the way he has lately. The other thing I wanted to mention was this Duke team is a different team. NC State is different. So is Duke. Absolutely. When the NCAA tournament began, Duke came into the tournament as the number 8 team in Ken Pom with the 7th best offense and the 26th best defense. Duke currently is 5th in Ken Pom, but we still have the 7th best offense. What has changed? Duke is all the way up to the 13th best defense in the country. NC State, when we played them last time, they managed to get 74 points on us. Telling you right now, I don't think it's happened. The way Duke's playing defense these days, NC State's not getting 74 points on Duke. No, I'm not sure anybody is. This Duke team is holding teams like averaging like 50 points a game. We're holding teams 15, 20, 25 points below their average. Sure, something crazy could happen. We could just suddenly forget the way we're playing against NC State. But if we don't, if this Duke team plays with the same toughness, intensity, and defensive fortitude that we've shown lately, NC State's in trouble. I'm just telling you right now, NC State is in trouble because they may be playing out of their minds, but this Duke team is on a whole different level from what it used to be.
And I think for us, the key to this game may not be anything that's on the stat sheet. It could be just the wherewithal to understand that we need to put Houston in the past right now. We cannot use that as the crowning, shining moment of our season saying, hey, we went to Dallas and we beat Houston. We got one more game in Dallas, and we need to win that game too against, again, a familiar opponent. We need to approach this game like we have the other 3 in the NCAA tournament. We approach this game as if NC State is unfamiliar because they are unfamiliar to us and we are unfamiliar to them, as you just said. These are 2 different teams that played each other 2 weeks ago and then 4 weeks ago. So we have to approach this game with a clean slate. Don't worry about the past. Past is what got us to this point, and now we need to worry about the present to make sure that our future has basketball in it next weekend. So I'm really excited about this game. 5:00 start on the East Coast, right? CBS. We get the A crew because we're the A team. So let's go get it. Let's go get another championship.
I love it. I love it, baby. All right, that's going to do it. Episode 618 of the DBR podcast. Donald and Jason signing off. Thanks for taking the past hour and listening to us prattle on and on ahead of the huge monster game against the NC State Wolfpack. Final Four on the line would be John Shire's first Final Four in his second season. That's a little ridiculous.
Breathe, ladies and gentlemen. Breathe and enjoy it. Honestly, enjoy it. I know this is going to be a game where people are going to be texting each other like just in angst, right? No nerves. And as I said to a couple of guys who said, hey, you brought on the voice of the Cougs, and last time you brought on the voice of another team we lost to Arizona. Ain't no curses around here. We're just focused. We're going to play our game, and we're ready. So don't be nervous. Be ready. Stay ready. Ain't got to get ready. Always be ready. Tomorrow, everybody who's wearing Duke blue, be ready.
I love it. I love it. All right. Until then, he's Donald. I'm Jason. There's the Duke Band. You know what they're doing right now? The plan is out. Taking us to Phoenix. At least I hope so.
Go Duke.